I got. That's what we're working on.
Okay.
How you doing?
Good evening. The time is now 7 p.m. I'll call this meeting of the Bridgewater Town Council to order. Please join me in rising for the Pledge of Allegiance. I pledge allegiance
To the flag of the United States of America and to the republic for which it stands, one nation, under God, indivisible, with liberty and justice for all.
Tonight's Town Council meeting is being live streamed on YouTube. Please go to the Town of Bridgewater Facebook page for the link. I do not have any condolences this evening for our veterans, but please join me in a moment of silence for all of our Bridgewater veterans who have passed. Thank you. Okay, we will start off with approval of minutes from previous meetings. Do I have a motion for approval and discussion?
So moved.
Second.
We have a motion and a second. Any discussion on the minutes? Seeing none, all those in favor?
Aye.
Any opposed? Motion carries. Moving on to item B, announcements from the president. I have something I'd like to share with you all. We previously recognized Mr. Levy, who is a 96-year-old Korean War veteran. He received the Korean War Armistice Proclamation a few months back. And I have an email that I'd like to share with all of you from our veterans agent, Mr. Greg Martin. He writes, I was visiting with Mr. Levy a few weeks ago. He was so proud to show me his kitchen range and the mirror that his daughter placed above it so that he could see what he's cooking from his wheelchair. His range was not ADA accessible, as all the knobs are in the back where he would need to reach over the burners to make adjustments to it. The following day, Greg visited D&L Appliance in East Bridgewater. The owner, Dave, is a Marine Corps veteran. I explained to him Mr. Levy's situation. He offered me an ADA unit that retails usually for $1,200 for $660. This included the delivery, installation, and hauling the old unit away. I immediately reached out to Al Lacerda from the Fire for Effect Foundation and Dave Moore from the Freemasons Lodge, where Mr. Levy is a member. Each of these two organizations came up with the entirety of the balance for the range. I started all of this coordination on Tuesday, September 23rd, and by the end of the week on Friday, September 26th, we had the range delivered. This is a great example of multiple groups coming together for a common good to help a Bridgewater veteran in need. I would like to acknowledge Dave and Linda Tonioli from D&L Appliance of East Bridgewater, Dave Moore and the Freemasons of Bridgewater's Fellowship Lodge, and Al Lacerda from the Fire for Effect Foundation for coming together so quickly to make this happen. Regards, Greg Martin. So thank you with a little round of applause. So thank you to Greg, of course, for being our veterans agent. Thank you to Al, who we always talk about in our meetings, Dave Moore and those folks, and of course the folks from D&L Appliance of East Bridgewater. It's a beautiful thing to see something like that come together. So I wanted to share that with everybody. Moving on, we do not have any proclamations, so we will go to citizen open forum. Due to Massachusetts open meeting law requirements, discussions will not take place during public meeting comment periods. If appropriate, responses to questions and concerns will be given by the town manager at a future town council meeting. Anyone may comment at this time for up to 3 minutes. Please state your name and address for the record.
My name is Ray Jemian, Alders Road. If you give me 10 extra seconds, I just want to comment on your comment on Mr. Levy. B. Levy's our neighbor. He's a great guy. And Mr. Martin has done wonders as a veterans agent. B didn't want anything to do with the VA. You have to know him. But Greg Martin worked with him, and he's done wonders as a VA agent. So I just want to commend him for that. I'm here to read a statement that the executive board of the BCCR has approved. So it's a statement that we feel strongly about. We, the members of the Bridgewater Communities for Civil Rights, are very concerned about the safety of immigrants in our community. Citizens as well as immigrants have protections under the United States Constitution. These include the long-honored Fifth Amendment right of due process, which requires the government to follow very specific legal procedures prior to the taking of anyone's liberty. Unfortunately, though, the due process seems to be ignored by Washington today. Why are we concerned? Based on news reports, it's clear that ICE activities have created fear and chaos for families and children in the immigrant communities. Immigrant families are afraid of being targeted for deportation regardless of their legal status. Those detained are not afforded the basic right of due process. Immigrant parents are afraid to take their children to school. Children's lives are turned upside down when their parents are detained by ICE. During May 2025 in Massachusetts, ICE arrested nearly 1,500 people during immigration enforcement operations. In Milford, Massachusetts, ICE detained an 18-year-old high school student who was traveling to volleyball practice on a Saturday morning in June of this year. In Chelsea, a father was pulled from his car on his way to church. Agents broke the passenger side window to get him out. Gas shards flew into the back seat where 3 children were sitting. A similar incident took place in New Bedford, with ICE agents smashing the window to arrest a Guatemalan national who, according to his attorneys, is not a criminal and is in line for asylum status. And about a week ago, we heard news that a 13-year-old boy was taken by ICE from a police station in Everett, where his mother was waiting for him to be released to her custody by local law enforcement. According to his lawyer, he was immediately taken to a detention facility out of state. We decry the detention of juveniles by ICE and denounce the use of violence during arrests of undocumented immigrants. We also strongly condemn the wearing of masks by ICE agents. Government agents should show their faces and have their badges visually displayed on their uniforms while conducting the business of government. We're a country of laws that apply to everybody. We at BCCR understand there is an intense controversy today over immigration, and that the issue of undocumented immigrants is real. But as a civil rights organization, we feel strongly that our government cannot simply ignore the United States Constitution to meet the unrealistic target of 3,000 deportations per day. The Fifth Amendment of the United States Constitution provides that no person shall be deprived of life, liberty, or property without due process of law. It applies to all people in the United States, including citizens, undocumented people, equally. Due process ensures fairness by requiring the government to follow certain procedures before taking away somebody's freedom or property. In summary, we would hope that you, our town leaders, will try to uphold the Constitution of the United States in the town of Bridgewater, and that you will ensure that all legal means will be used to protect our residents from unwarranted arrest procedures. Thank you.
Thank you. Would anyone else like to come up and speak?
Thank you, Mr. President, Madam Vice President. John Donna, 261 South Street. I'd just like to thank the council for their efforts recent months. Just been some tough issues in town for, the override and more recently at the last meeting. And I can only imagine how many emails you've all received or text, and some probably weren't pleasant. And I know how much time you put into this, having attended some of the meetings, not just town council, but otherwise. And I personally believe that, it's my personal belief that you're all acting in the interest of the town. So I want to thank you for being on the council at these tough times and listening to the people. This resident greatly appreciates it. If I could just speak as a resident, just personal feedback on the matter of housing. I think housing is the last thing this town needs right now, especially multifamily high-density housing. You don't have to travel too far to see how it can change the character of a town quickly. And at this point in this town, it's just going to exacerbate the problems that we currently have. Water, classroom size, traffic. So more housing is the last thing we really need right now, especially high-density, multifamily housing. And if I could just refer back to a couple of meetings ago when our president of BSU was here, Mr. Clark, he said, this stuck with me, he said, Bridgewater is ranked one of the top 25 college towns for its community. That is saying a lot, considering how many colleges there are in this town, not just Massachusetts, but in the whole country. We're top 25. And that tells me if Bridgewater is being recognized for the way it is now, we really shouldn't be messing around with things too much. I see a little tweaking there, here and there, maybe needed, but things are good in this town. So I'd just like to leave you with that thought. Thank you very much.
Thank you. And would anyone else like to come up and speak?
Hi. My name's Jill Sheridan. I am a mom of 4 in the town. A public school teacher. I've coached many sports teams in this town. And I'm wanting to address Council President Loretti and other council members about the Charlie Kirk veneration in the October 16th meeting. I'm not here to change your mind. You wanted to venerate Charlie Kirk, fine, but I'm here to speak to the rest of Bridgewater who clearly see the danger of Christian nationalism. And so, you wanted to have a moment of silence for somebody who was clearly a white nationalist, but I live here too. And I remember that a few weeks ago, the council voted down a resolution to make Bridgewater a welcoming community for all people. And I wanted to share a personal experience from the Saturday No Kings rally. An agitator with a Charlie Kirk / Donald Trump sign, he had 2 of them, assaulted me personally and several others. He repeatedly called me, and I have to say it, he repeatedly called me a cunt face, a bitch, and a whore in front of families that included children, my own kids included. And then something happened. A young man who was an Iraqi war veteran stepped up to have a conversation with this man who was raging, and it ended up with them shaking hands. My 18-year-old son, calmly and respectfully as well, had a conversation with this man, and I feel like the moral of the story is when you lean into people, actually humanizing people, like we're not these, I've seen the town Facebook pages and like social media insults, but when you lean in, we have a lot more in common than not. And we have a president who was idolized by Charlie Kirk, who you venerated, posted a video of himself dropping fecal matter on American people. And if you think that's okay, I don't know what to say. I mean, this is not funny, it's not normal, and I guess I'm not here to change your mind, but I'm here to tell everybody else in Bridgewater that this is not normal behavior. That's not how humans should treat each other. And I hope that the Bridgewater Council members can collectively denounce that connection with Charlie Kirk, even though you chose to, venerate him and memorialize him. It has no place in a public meeting. And we don't have a connection to Christian nationalism. So I just hope that council members will hear that and realize that That's not Bridgewater. That's not who we are. We're not Charlie Kirk. We're not Donald Trump. We're not these
Thank you, Jill.
people
We're
who
past 3 minutes at this
post
point.
videos dropping feces on American people.
Thank you.
So, thank you.
Would anyone else like to come and speak?
Just me? Cool. Just me. All right. Go on, Jack.
Mr. President, members of the council, residents in attendance, and folks at home, good evening. MJ Spagone, 5 Lakeshore Center, Unit 128. I just have a couple of items this evening, Mr. President. I know that there's a couple of items of legislation on the docket this evening, including the town manager's tenure of office, the ethics regulation changes. I did want to just give a little bit of input on that. I'm kind of concerned about the tenure of office bit of that. I recognize that industry-wide, as it were, 3 years is a good period of time for a town manager to be signed to a municipality, but it kind of takes away the ability for a potential candidate to negotiate a term of office. I think setting yourselves for 3 years only kind of gives the impression that you only want a person here one and done and let them leave, where you should be more open to retaining that individual. I know our previous town manager, Mr. Dutton, was here for roughly 10 years, and that's because he had a good relationship with the town. Not saying that any other future town manager would not have a good relationship with the municipality, but I think it needs to be a little more forward-thinking that the stipulations about having it only be one term, then be determined to an additional term by a majority of the council, I think kind of kneecaps the intent of having a town manager who will want to come to the municipality and work for the town of Bridgewater. That's the only thing I had for input on that. The other item I had concern about was the extensive changes to the ethics part, the business practices and ethics portion of the legislation submitted by Councilor Kennedy. I believe it's a little bit more wordy than it needs to be. I would like to certainly personally like to see it be a little more refined. Effectively, basically lining it up to say any person who is involved, associated with, or works for, volunteer, or otherwise for the town of Bridgewater shall be subject to Massachusetts General Law, Chapter 268A, and any other additional regulations. I think the bigger problem with the ethics issue in town, while I do not perceive any type of ethical issues with any of our colleagues, either you on the council, my fellow volunteers, town employees, I think it needs to be specifically noted that if you really want that ethics part to work, you need to have more enforcement of it. Mind you, I fill out a statement of financial interest every year. That is something you might want to change. It says it should be every June 1st, but the form does say January to December. Maybe have it just say instead by December 30th of that year. That would be certainly a good idea to do, make it consistent. But the thing is that rules and regulations are great to have. The problem is how are you enforcing them, and also how much of that data is going to be preserved and protected? While it is stated in the legislation that it is going to be protected as the best possible case for all data, I frankly find it concerning that we're going to ask everybody in town on it when you really only need to do the important ones, which are the department heads and the committee chairs. I think it actually, in a way, while I think it's a great idea to have more regulation, I think it possibly stymies the ability to cater folks to come on to boards, committees, and commissions. Not everybody in town wants to know what everyone else is doing in their own personal financial life. I have honestly no problem. Full disclosure, I pay $3,000 a month in rent. I have a $22,000 car. I have a $5,000 car. I pay $700 in excise taxes for the last couple of years. Other than that, I don't owe anything else other than a bunch of loans and a whole ton of credit card debt. Other than that, that's pretty much it. But honestly, also simplify the form. It's really, really egregious that we have to have that much documentation when all you just need to have is someone sign and declare exactly what they have. Don't dig into the weeds too much. Keep it simple. Those are the only items of input that I would give you, Mr. President, and through you to Councilor Kennedy. I appreciate the work that you did, Sean. Keep it up. And if you have any questions, please feel free to ask somebody who's actually in the municipal sector, and we'll give you a few more pointers. That way we help you guys be better at your job. Cool. Thank you, Mr. President.
Would anyone else like to come and speak? Okay, thank you very much. We'll now move on to appointments. First up, item A, DEIB Committee, Jane Myrick. Sorry if I'm mispronouncing that. Do I have a motion for approval and a second for discussion?
So moved.
We have a
Second.
motion and a second. Any discussion on this appointment?
Thank you, Mr. President. I just want to commend Jane for her very thorough application. I would probably say it's one of the most thorough front to back for 2 different committees that we've received. So I just wanted to give her kudos in public that it was very well presented, and she's very impressive on paper.
Thank you.
I will say, this is really loud. I will say ditto to that.
Thank you. Any further comment?
I will probably not be supporting DEI because I think that we shouldn't have a DEI committee in town. Again, as a person of faith, we are all children of God. We need to treat each other with kindness. So I will be voting against for the DEI, but I think it's wonderful that she applied for the Cultural Council as well. Thank you.
Thank you.
Thank you again, Mr. President. I would just implore any counselor that does not feel the DEIB committee is of any service to our town to bring forth legislation that we as a council can do in a productive way of having that conversation in a bigger scale conversation. But we do have a very capable applicant for both of these positions.
Thank you.
Can I ask for a roll call vote, please?
Sure. We're just doing a vote for the DEIB committee appointment for Jane. We are not on the Culture Council yet. So let's go ahead and do a roll call on this one.
Mr. Kennedy?
Yes.
Ms. Ellenberg?
No.
Ms. Strigels?
Yes.
Ms. McGrath?
Yes.
Mr. Loretti?
Yes.
Mr. Murphy?
Yes.
Ms. Hunt?
Yes.
And Mr. Lindy?
Yes.
7 in favor, 1 opposed.
Thank you. We'll now move on to the Cultural Council appointment. This is also for Jane. Do I have a motion for approval and a second for discussion?
So moved.
Second.
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 Mr. President?
Yep.
Can I ask a procedural question, I think through you, to the town attorney or the town manager? In the past, I know we're having a hard time getting people on committees, but in the past, people were not allowed to be on more than one committee. It is true. I applied for a committee, and I wasn't allowed to be on a second committee when I wasn't a counselor. And that is someplace in procedure. I just would like to know if that's still the case.
I'm pretty sure, and you can obviously look it up, it's an elected official, not serve on any additional committees. And it's within the town manager's discretion if someone serves on multiple other forms of committees, but we can obviously look it up. But an elected official certainly can't, by way of rules.
So just further clarification, I was not an elected official. I was on the school building committee. The town manager wanted to appoint me to another committee, and I wasn't allowed to go forward with that. I also had to resign the housing authority. Couldn't serve on that committee. That was not an elective committee. That was a quasi-public committee. I had to leave that when I got on the council, and I still didn't leave a good taste in my mouth. So I'm just saying, if we're going to do this, we should really make sure we're proceeding properly.
Sure.
Could I take just 1 minute?
Yep.
When I was town clerk, I several times swore in people who were serving on 2 committees. It was up to the town manager to do that, and I think sometimes it depended on what the committees were. I don't know, I wasn't making the judgment, but I think they might have looked, the town manager might look at how intense a particular committee was, say, for the planning board. That's really intense. You're meeting all the time. DEIB, it might not be as intense. Certainly Cultural Council is not as intense. It has its very intense time during the year, but then it isn't for many other months. So I'm thinking that things like that might make a difference.
Okay. Well, speaking specifically to these appointments, this is okay that we could have these 2 appointments on here tonight?
I certainly can review it if you want to continue the appointment. this is the first question I've had on it, so I can review it, and you can hold off appointing her to the Cultural Council till next week, if you want to do that. If not, I'll defer to the town manager.
Well, I took a look at this before, and thank you, Councilor Hunt. I didn't see any restriction to having more than 2 committees. I actually met and interviewed this woman as well. She's eager to contribute, and in cognition of where our boards, committees, and commissions are in quorum, I made a decision to add her to 2 committees, and Councilor Hunt's absolutely correct. I think that's a decision that I make on a case-by-case basis, depending on what board and committee it may be, they may be serving on. I felt that for the purpose of these 2 committees, that she would serve well. So I would like to see it proceed. I know Cultural Council would like to get some more members, and DEIB would like to get some more members as well.
Great. We'll go ahead and proceed. I'll go ahead.
I just want to note that during my time as a counselor for the last year and a half, we have appointed people to multiple committees. So it has happened during my tenure. So we've seen repeat names on applications while I've been here.
Yeah. All right. If no further discussion, all those in favor? Aye.
Aye.
Any opposed?
I'm not opposed. I'm voting aye, but I would like to look into it and get some more information back. I don't want to stop the Cultural Council from performing, but it's got to be applied similarly across the board.
Okay, thank you. So no opposed, and motion carries. All right, we do not have any hearings nor licensed transactions. We do have a presentation. We have our water presentation, and I will defer to our town manager for that.
Yeah, we're having a Zoo and Bill Young, our new water superintendent, come and provide the presentation. I think they're just gathering their items there.
Okay.
Yeah, the air conditioning just came on.
Showing a threat down. Yeah, okay.
Oh, after you, if you're waiting for us.
Okay, well,
Thank you.
good evening, Mr. President and councilors. Thank you for indulging us this evening. This presentation is really an abbreviated version of what we did back in March when we presented a more detailed overview of our water, roadways, as well as wastewater. So today we are focusing on water because, as everybody knows, water has been very a hot button issue, if you will. So, without much further delay, I'll go to through the slides. So basically, this presentation is intended to provide an overview of our water supply system related projects. And while we are focusing on major issues here, there are several maintenance work that we've been doing across the board. And again, the safety of the town of Bridgewater residents is paramount to what we do. And with that, I also, as you know, our former superintendent Jonas Kazlauskas retired back in August, and we went through a search for a new superintendent for water. We divided the divisions into water and sewer, so we have a sewer superintendent. Right now, we have an acting sewer superintendent. We have a new water superintendent, Bill Young. Some people call him Billy. I call him Willie Billy. And there he is. He's from Middleborough, and we are excited to have him on board. He has a very, very good working understanding and knowledge in water treatment and distribution, so we are happy to have Bill here. So if you have any problems, talk to him. If you want to give credits, call me. So water capacity update, as you all know, or may know, last time we talked about the fact that the current permit that we have is 1.98 million gallons per day. But what we have right now with our infrastructure, we are averaging at 1.55 million gallons per day. So leaving us with around half a million gallons a day. But because of the aging infrastructure, we have engaged in doing a lot of work with the wells. And right now, we have a well 10B, which is very high in iron and manganese, that we occasionally bring online to provide adequate water levels in our water towers, Sprague Hill and Great Hill, in order to make sure that we can fight fire. The design for that, I will touch on that again. The design for taking that water to the High Street treatment plant is underway. And I want to point out, there's a lot of times there's a lot of rumor that goes out there, but the town of Bridgewater is not currently under a do not drink order. DEP has indeed determined, because we provide them all the sampling and test data, and we are safe. The discoloration is not ever something to laugh at, but it's safe water. But we also have PFAS-free water at the High Street facility, the Highway Department. So wells 10A and 10B are being tied to High Street plant, and we're looking at a 2-year timeline for that work. And once that well comes on board, we wouldn't be fighting anymore with the discoloration issues. Covers Point PFAS removal under EPA order is scheduled for 2029, as well as High Street PFAS removal, also 2029. Albeit, EPA is currently considering extending that timeline to 2031, but an official advisory has not been issued. So our water system priorities, we want to maximize withdrawals from the wells that will meet our water demand. As I said earlier, a lot of those wells need upgrade. We took our wells 4 and 2 offline so that we can service those wells and redevelop them. And then one of our priorities, as I stated in the prior presentation, is to make sure that we are complying with all the regulatory requirements at the state level and at the federal level. And then part of the work that we do in our priorities is to make sure that we have adequate storage in our towers, Sprague Hill and Great Hill, to make sure that we can fight fire. And we are planning, we're not sitting idle by, we are planning for additional water sources. We have approval from DEP for our Vernon Street wells, and that is part of the capital projects that we are planning. And then, of course, we want to make sure that we ensure financial stability of the Water Enterprise Fund to make sure that we can do all the work that are necessary to keep the people of Bridgewater safe. here we have an ongoing, what I call the ongoing capital projects. Back in March, we reported to this council that we are wells number 9R and 5R, basically R represents replacement. So replacement well number 9 and replacement well number 5. And DEP was very cooperative in fast tracking our approval review process. And they literally did it in a very record time. And I'm happy to report to you that both wells are online. And they actually, the opinion of probable cost that we provided, we came under those budgets. So that's always a good thing. Well 10A and 10B connection to High Street plant, as I stated in the prior slide, is under design right now. We are finishing the pilot study. Actually, tomorrow we'll finish the pilot study, and then the design will continue. So project priorities, replacement wells, as we reported last time. High Street needed increased well production. The actual cost for those two was about $1.8 million. And it was through a bond issue. And status is being completed. So we are getting things done. It's just that we're not moving at the speed of light. Plymouth Street wells, transmission line, the project priority, estimated cost $7.1 million, revenue source, town funds, the survey and engineering, and then the SRF funding that is below interest loan. We're looking at about $6.6 million. So the survey is complete. Now we're doing the design. And then, of course, we do need a DEP approval. And they have assured us, because we have stayed in touch with them on a regular basis. So they are very much aware and supportive of what we're doing. And planned capital projects, we are looking at we did a hydraulic modeling so that we know where we need upgrades in our distribution system, which will be the pipe network that are in the roadways. We have Vernon Street wells that I talked about, Cavas Pond, as well as High Street PFAS removal. So those are about $7 million. And the work on the Sprague Hill tank rehabilitation. And so those are the planned projects, and we are still working on them. And obviously, we are still also looking at our other sources. Mentioned before, the Aquaria water through the city of Brockton. Right now, obviously, it's not a slam dunk. That will also require a lot of review by DEP with the interbasin supply and treatment. But so we are very active. Funding options, we have the water system, user fees. The council, I believe, has approved the rate study that was done by Tufralis, and the gentleman that came here did an excellent job in explaining those rate studies. And then so I believe the finance department is working it into the system. And so if you have any questions on funding details, I'm not a funding expert. I'm an engineer, but we have a funding expert, and the person of our director, Laurie Guarini, who has actually, if I may put a plug, has done an incredible job for this town. And so final comments, we realize that there are concerns about our water infrastructure and capacity, but we are focused on ensuring that we are meeting federal and state requirements to deliver the water quality that our residents and users deserve, ensuring that we are being judicious about projects that tie into our water system. And I'll make a quick comment about that. Obviously, there are people are anxious about what we are doing with projects that are coming online and whether those projects can be supported. Well, we are working, and as you all know, while we have guardians of our water supply, you also have to maintain the viability. We do need, we just have to be smart about how we do it. But we do need to have projects that make sense for the town to come on board because especially businesses that are businesses that can generate a good revenue for the town. We might see them as big users, but they actually are the ones that pay the heavy rates in the tier 3 level. And so I would encourage all of us to find a balance between making sure that we're protecting our water supplies and making sure that we can grow. If we don't eat, we die, right? So we gotta feed our community. Make sure that we are growing, but we have to grow smart. And undergoing further study to evaluate our interconnection system costs and opportunities to add further revenue to our water enterprise fund. So it's a balance, but I will not. I'm not an advocate for a total shutdown. It just wouldn't make sense. And so we're working with our consultants, and we're applying for and utilizing opportunities that are available to us to receive monetary support outside the current base of users. So we're looking at those, and actually, we have received some money from the lawsuits that were filed regarding PFAS lawsuits, and we've gotten some settlements. And again, Ms. Guerini can address whatever funding that we have received from that lawsuit. But we have, so we have benefited from that. And then we're evaluating opportunities that will lead to an increase in our withdrawal permit. And once, they are not off record per se, but DEP has assured us that if we do all the things that we are doing right now, that they will be willing to entertain the idea of increasing our withdrawal capacity. So while we are at 1.98 right now, and we're only doing 1.55, we can get to 1.98 that we are permitted for once all the infrastructure work, the critical ongoing ones are done. So the projects that are under consideration right now, they're not. The beauty of it is, by the time they got online, a lot of the work that we are doing will already been done to provide for those projects. So even though we can approve a project today, it doesn't mean that they're tying in today. So we do have a breathing room to accommodate some of those smart projects. And oh gosh, end of slide. Ooh, look at that. Okay, since I did a great presentation, I don't think there are any questions, right?
I see Mr. Lindy has his hand up. I'll give him the first question.
You did do a great presentation, and thank you for the information. I have some questions, and all summer long I was asked by different constituents. I mean, we've had an outside watering ban for a while because of what our capacity is. I believe in March, the former water superintendent stood here and told us that we have an issue with the amount of water we have. We are going to do things that are going to cost a lot of money, but we have big projects coming into town. We have a whole bunch of proposals from Claremont on one side of town, and we have 2 big projects downtown, and more things contemplated. So do we now have the capacity, or are you saying we will have the capacity after we do all of this and spend the money? So can a permit be issued for large projects right now as it stands?
Well, as Mr. Lin, thank you for that question. I appreciate that. Go back to what Mr. Jonas said. back in March, wells 5R and 9R were not online. They're now online. Well 10B does indeed produce water, but obviously it has the manganese and, so raw water going into the distribution system is a problem. A lot of those projects that you talked about, I welcome those projects because they will help offsetting a lot of these costs that we are talking about. But they're not going to be online for probably another year and a half. And so once we bring wells 10 online, hopefully within the same time frame, that problem will be abated. So what happens is when you have 1.55 that we're withdrawing, even though we have a capacity of 1.98, what happens is when you don't have enough replenishment of the wells because of drought conditions, because the state also declared drought advisory. So when you have, it's like a study that was done years ago. If you have 10,000 people walk across Brooklyn Bridge, that will support them. But once you start, everybody's running at the same time and pounding that bridge, 10,000 people can bring down that bridge down. Why do I give that analogy? And that is the same thing with our water supply. The average daily withdrawal is saying over the course of a day, you can withdraw this much amount of water. But what you see during the summertime and springtime, people are filling in their pools, everybody's running their sprinklers, so you have a surge, right? Just like on your roadways. You have traffic going. We might say that that road can carry 5,000 vehicles per day. But during the peak hour, 9 a.m., 7 a.m. to 9 a.m. or 4 p.m. to 6 p.m., all of a sudden you see a surge, like on my street, on Pleasant Street. But it can carry 10,000 cars a day. But you can't have 10,000 cars in 1 hour. So that is why we have those precautionary measures regarding our sprinkling. And quite frankly, my major concern as we talk about water quality, part of the reason we want to prohibit the automatic sprinkler unless you have a private well is we don't have a way of knowing if those people have backflow preventers. And so they can be introducing fertilizer and chemicals in our water system. So it would not make sense to allow that. So that's why, when you have that surge of demand, that's what, but we do have the ability to support those developments.
So I live in a condo complex, Michael's Landing, which you're familiar with.
Yes, sir.
And we followed religiously the water ban this summer. All of our lawns are dead, okay? And we can't power wash to clean our gutters right now as it speaks. We're not sure how we're going to do that to get the leaves out of the gutters. I just don't understand how we have major projects coming online. I'm worried about fire protection too, okay? Because obviously we need that if we have a wildfire. Hopefully the chief is looped into the whole discussion. But, how can we as a town issue a permit to a developer when we technically don't have the capacity to build that out right now? I mean, it'll take a while for those projects to be built.
Correct.
One is already in development. I don't know where it stands, the Foundry project. There's another project right down the street, Broad Street. There's 3 or 4 facilities planned for Claremont, okay, in an environmentally sensitive area. I'm just concerned, okay? I think we need to do development, but it's kind of chicken before the egg, the cart before the horse. I'm just telling you what I'm hearing from constituents. And then I'm hoping we're going to have more than one water source. I'm hoping we're not just looking exclusively at Brockton and Aquaria. I mean, I sat in this room. I think there were a couple of us, the economic development director at one point. That's not a good deal for Brockton. And I don't think it's going to be a good deal for Bridgewater. I hope we have an option with Taunton too, because Aquaria has been paid for about 10,000 times by Brockton without a lot of water being used. It is not a good water source. It's an old plant, so I just hope that's going to be taken into consideration.
Yeah, they actually very good, valid points, Mr. Lindy. They are obviously, just like we have our aging infrastructure that we're working on. Aquaria is looking at doing that. And I believe their contract with Brockton is winding down, and hopefully Brockton can renew it. But it's not just about Brockton, but there are other communities. East Bridgewater, Rainham, Easton, West Bridgewater, Avon, and of course Bridgewater, looking to collaboratively have a joint regional water supply system. And obviously it takes a lot of planning. But we're also looking at the Vernon Street wells that I talked about earlier.
Yeah.
So we're looking at that. That's an option. Obviously, it's not going to come on board any minute, in a second. But if we plan those, and I believe that if we judiciously plan those and target those, and I believe, if I'm not speaking out of term here, I believe the town manager and the CED director have communicated, because I've been chewing up their ears about water. So, and I think they've communicated, and I think they've got a pretty good understanding of the balance, and they were letting those developers recognize that you got to pay to play. So, and I'll leave it at that. They can talk about that. But I do think it's a very important question, and believe me, as long as I'm the director of DPW here, I will protect. And I live in town, so so my number one goal is to protect our resources, and but I also recognize that we need to feed the, these big projects. They are the ones that actually pay a lot of the money.
Thank you.
Yes, sir.
Questions for other councilors?
Thank you for the presentation. My questions are probably going to stem a little bit off of Councilor Lindy's. So we're seeing that we aren't reaching the current cap, but our infrastructure also is not able to maintain that cap that we are allotted, correct?
Because of all the work that needs to be done to the wells, and we're doing that. Well, for example, well number 4 is being serviced, and we're coming back online. Well number 2 is being serviced as I speak, and that will be probably another 2 weeks. And well 10, which produces more than 200 gallons a minute. That's, when we turn it on, within 2 days, our water levels come back up. So once we get that to High Street, a good amount of our problem will be gone.
So should
And
that
I wouldn't be getting phone calls about colors.
should that limit the well with the high iron content from being pumped into the system if we have another separate well online?
Well, no, so when we achieve safe levels in the towers, we pull the well offline again.
Okay.
Yeah.
So with the aging infrastructure, I see the plan, and I see the cap that we have and where we are right now, but it seems like we are kind of reaching our own cap based on our infrastructure and what we're able to do. So at what point do we balance quality of life for the residents and the safety versus what the actual cap is in town when it comes to development? What should we be looking at here for that? Because I think we're seeing development, which is good, and we need tax revenue. But is it going to start coming at the expense of residents being able to use water as they see that they need? Or
No.
So Kenny, before, and Zoo can answer this, I think we've tried to say this a couple of times, is that over the course of, let's say, this past summer, the infrastructure needed to be replaced in some areas. So wells 9R and 5R were taken down. Currently, we're cleaning wells and we're doing well redevelopment currently. That happens over a succession of weeks. As we get more of those wells cleaned and redeveloped, it adds to our capacity. I think this past summer, particularly where we've been sort of aggrieved, we had water drought conditions throughout the Commonwealth. Aquifer levels were low. We were doing infrastructure projects at the same time. The summer increased water demand. I almost look at it as like a perfect storm of situations. But we are currently doing processes to redevelop our wells, to clean our wells. We have that capacity, but we have to do that work to improve our infrastructure. I think that's what you've heard from the DPW director. That's what you're going to hear from me. That's what you're going to hear from CED. We have that capacity to reach those our permit limit, but we've got to do the work to ensure that we are able to do that. Right?
okay. That answers my question that I've had from quite a few residents as well. So thank you.
Yeah.
Any other questions?
Thank you, and thank you, Azu. I know that there are probably people in the gallery and people at home. They hear that the town received PFAS settlement funds. So I do think that it's very important if we say that we are transparent about what that number is. So if we're able to get that number that's synced with this meeting, I think that that would be beneficial for our residents.
Councilor Striggles, we have received some funds. We've received about $873,000 in PFAS settlement funds. The reason why we haven't really talked about those funds just yet is that about 3 weeks ago, there was a federal sort of decision coming from the EPA about looking at the PFAS levels from the current administration and whether we would have to reach those certain levels. So I know some communities have advertised receiving those funds and have already allocated those funds. I've talked with our attorney who's involved with the PFAS class action settlements. So we're just being cautious about that. We're obviously putting that money in a special account, and we're going to utilize that for some of the work that needs to be done. We've mentioned about PFAS remediation projects, et cetera. That's what we would utilize those funds for. And we're going to continue to try to get more funds as well.
Thank you.
Yes, thank you, Mr. Azu. You mentioned the possibility of the Vernon Street new well and development, and I see that there is a lot of work that has to be done with pilot and design and then bidding and construction and so forth. How long do you think such a thing would take?
Conservatively speaking, you're probably looking about 3 to 4 years.
I see. One thing that concerns me is if we go with Brockton or Taunton, we are not the master of our destiny when it comes to water. If we were to have the Vernon Street well, then Bridgewater would be an independent entity as to its water. Is that right?
It will give us stability, and we wouldn't be doing a lot of complaining about water, because it's also a very good water, out of very, very high quality water out of those wells.
Out of Vernon Street is
Yes.
high quality water?
Very good quality water.
Ah.
And so if we have that, then that gives us a very good opportunity to ask for the increase, so that we can develop, floated the idea of raising us from 1.98 to 2.2, 2.3, which is a lot of withdrawal. And they are very cautious of doing that, because even though we say we are a town and we have our own wells, we are part of a regional Taunton River Basin that West Bridgewater draws from, parts of Taunton draw from, Rainham draws from, Bridgewater draws from. And so DEP monitors that to figure out how much they allow each community to withdraw.
Has DEP spoken to you about the possibility of the Vernon Street well?
Oh, yeah. So it's permitted right now. And our permit for those wells, 5 years. We have a 5-year permit to do the work. So we are still under the window of being able to do the work before the 5-year expiration date. So the permits are there for those 2 wells.
Thank you.
Yes, ma'am.
Councilor Ellenberg, just to expand on that as well, and I think a previous question from Councilor Lindy, when we're looking to expand our water capacity, we're looking at every and all opportunities. We'll evaluate them and see what's cost effective, what's time sensitive as well, to meet the demands that we have. One aspect, and I don't disagree with you, if we're looking at a regional approach or tying to the Brockton desal plant, we don't have control of that. But Vernon Street wells, we do have control of that. I think Azu outlined, some benefit to that. But one thing that we have to be cognizant of as well is, right now, a projected cost is over $38 million.
Right, the expense.
You have to have that in mind when we're looking at the other opportunities we have available. So we look at it as a 2-track approach. We're not going in one direction or another. The team is working collaboratively to look at all options, and we'll come back before the communities, give a recommendation on what direction we think makes sense to go. But, I think as you hear from us today, cost does factor into that. Development does factor into that. What our base of users factors into that. So, I do want to point out that that's $38 million today. And I think if we remember COVID at one point, when we thought prices would be $19 million at one point and jumped up to $30 million, that $40 million it is today, it might be $50 million. So we have to be cognizant of that.
Any other questions?
Thank you, Mr. President. So have you know how much it's going to cost yearly or by the gallons from Taunton? Did you, so 38 for it's not only the wells, but the whole treatment, right? A treatment plant on the Vernon? It'll be 2 wells with the treatment plant?
So basically, the options are build a plant over there so that we can deliver the water right away into the distribution system. That's one option. And that will also require a water tower. The other option is to run it to Cavas upon treatment plant. But Cavas will need an upgrade, and it's a much older plant. Then the third option is to take it to High Street. That will require a lot of pipe network to get to High Street. So that is one bucket. And then the other bucket is the Cavas, and the other one is building a treatment plant over there. So we have to do a cost-benefit analysis to see
So the
which one makes more
38,
sense.
the 38 million is for the 2 wells and the treatment plant?
The wells are already there, so it'll be.
But you have to dig them, right?
No, the wells are there.
Oh, they're
It's
already
just a
there.
question of building a plant or running
And a
them.
tank.
Yes.
So we do need new tanks, right? Because our 2 tanks are very old. So it wouldn't hurt for us to actually do that, to have another tank, right? The 2 tanks we have are really old, the water tanks?
So the 2 tanks that we have
Yeah.
are low because when we take well 10 offline, we don't have enough water to boost the water level.
But how old are they? They're very old?
Those 2 tanks,
Yeah.
they're younger than me. Let's put it that way.
Yeah.
So
So-
they're younger than me. They can't be too old.
One of the planned capital projects includes spring rehabilitation replacement. Sorry, excuse me, thank you. One of the planned capital projects includes the Sprague Hill tank rehabilitation and replacement process too. So, we are looking at the tanks, and that's something that we're considering, Mary, whether to add another tank, it might make sense.
So the other thing was, did you figure out how much money it would cost us to take the money from Taunton, the water from Taunton? Especially, do we go by gallons? Because now we're going to do development, so it's going to cost. So having paid all that for Taunton for so many years, we could put that money actually towards the Vernon?
Yeah, I believe you referenced in Brockton when you say Taunton. We haven't gotten to that level yet to get into the financial details. There's a lot of moving parts there. As we start to discuss with them, we'll have a little bit more information regarding that. I can't answer that right now.
Okay, thank you.
You're welcome.
Any other questions? I have a few, and they are specific and kind of pointed, so if you can't answer them specifically, then we could address it another time. We're talking about the Vernon Street wells. Do we know the amount of water we could gain from those? I checked the master plan for water, which was in 2024, and the design is 0.56, so 560,000 gallons a day.
Half a million.
Is that accurate?
Very much so, because all the short-term, long-term pump tests, that's what DEP has permitted us for those 2 wells.
Okay.
For $500,000 gallons a day, and they don't issue those permits carelessly. So we did a very extensive study, and we tested them earlier this year.
Great. Yeah, because I look at it, $38 million. What's the dollars per gallon? On that per day. So I think that's an analysis that we'll all have to carefully look at. Looking at 5 and 9, which are now back online. Do we know the functional capacity that we have realized as an increase? Again, I know that's a very specific question.
Yeah,
but do we know what that was?
They both were delivered 200 gallons a minute.
200
gallons a minute.
What is that per day? Do we know?
Well, so
times 60 times 24.
So what happened? So if I answer that question, it doesn't pump all day long.
Okay.
Okay. Those wells have to rest. Okay. And what happens too is within your distribution system, right? This one is coming at 100 and 200 gallons a minute. This one is coming 200 gallons a minute. They're not delivering 400 gallons a minute, right? Just like if you have 2 cars coming in different directions, they're going to collide, and they're going to be slowed down. So while it has that capacity to pump 200 gallons a minute, it doesn't deliver 200 gallons a minute because you have all those frictional losses, right? As the water travels through the network, it loses energy. And then when it comes in from the other wells, they slow down. But cumulatively, so I'm not going to give you a straight mathematical answer that this is what it translates to a day, for the simple reason that that can be misconstrued to think that we are producing that much a day. I know we're not.
It sounds like a considerable amount of water, and people are concerned about development. And I'm just looking at certain developments, like Broad Street, for example. I think, if I remember correctly, that's about 11,000 gallons per day. And so we're talking about in the order of hundreds of thousands of gallons per day, which were added into capacity. So I think that conversation is kind of relevant, so that people can kind of understand the scale of which these developments actually are.
But just to help underscore that, okay? You look at our Claremont. Okay, we're all concerned about the project that's coming there. That whole project, including the two big apartments, the offices, okay, they are using less than 120,000 gallons right now. So we talk about these huge projects, but they don't use that much water as we think they should be. So you're looking at about 120,000 right now. The project that they're planning probably will add another 10,000 gallons a day, right? And so, so we have to be mindful of that, that you see the size of the project, you think it's, the consumption will be exponential. It really isn't. And then the offices, they don't use water at night, right? They don't use water at night. So it sounds like a huge project, but it's a manageable project.
Yeah, I think that perspective is important. Last one is, again, I was looking at the water master plan, and if you take out 10A and 10B, it looks like our designed capacity is around 2 million gallons a day, 2.03. Is that accurate? I understand that all of the wells need to be operational at that point, but is that safe to say that we have the ability to get 2 million gallons out of the ground per day?
Once we treat well 10A and 10B, you can, but you're not permitted to do that.
Yeah, 1.98 is the limit, right?
Right.
Yeah.
And right now we are averaging 1.55. So once we get all the maintenance work done, we'll be approaching that level.
Okay.
When will that maintenance work be done?
So as I stated earlier, Councilor, the 10A and 10B will be, our estimate right now is 2 years. Okay. It could be less, but I like to exaggerate so that if it comes down like some of our budget, we look like good stewards.
Any further questions? Okay. Well, thank you very much. That was very informative.
Thank you. I
Appreciate
appreciate
the
it.
presentation.
Thank you.
Okay, we'll now move on to our town manager's report. So I'll send it over to Mr. Casanova Davis when he is ready for us.
Thank you. We're going to have the fire station update first, and the fire chief.
Blocking the camera for me. So I think you all got the monthly report. We are 5 weeks away tonight from seeing the first furniture delivery, the council for the brains of the operation. If anybody's been by there, I mean, there's a lot of progress been made. I mean, we're still on schedule. I haven't been including the PCO log for the last 3 months because honestly, we haven't had any change orders, which is good. We do anticipate some small ones for additional wiring and AV IT work, but nothing significant. So we're in good shape with what we have left for a contingency. Again, I know that member Murphy has been down for a tour. The manager's been there. We now have our weekly meetings every other week on site, walking the building, which has been useful because everyone's getting a chance to, we're not using that kind of stone. So we're in good shape. I mean, we're still where we thought we were going to be, and happy to answer any questions.
You
said tours are open to come down? So we could come down and
Yeah,
make an appointment with you?
What I've suggested is, I mean, we can coordinate it through the manager's office. We just need a couple of days to make sure that everyone knows. There's some protocol that, you know, you have to follow, but more than welcome. You know, don't come more than 5 at a time, because then we're having a meeting.
Right. Thank you.
Any other questions? Okay. Thank you.
Thank you.
So I think as part of the fire station, our Chief Slats is here, and he wanted to talk about that move a little bit further and staffing concerns. So we'll hear from Chief Slats.
Hi, everybody. My name is John Schatz, Bridgewater Fire Chief. I've seen most of you before, and I know most of you have seen my presentation, I believe it was back in March. So some of this stuff is going to be repetitive. Some of this is new. So if you have any questions, you know, feel free, or we can have questions at the end. So the challenges, like I mentioned back in March, our biggest challenge is staffing. So on our east side station, we're staffed with a 2-man engine. And a 2-man engine jeopardizes the safety of the first arriving crew at any fire scene. Its inability to conduct a fire attack with only 2 personnel. There's a nationwide rule, 2 in, 2 out rule. So no one person goes in a burning building by himself. So when you pull up with 2 firefighters, one person has to man the pump, the other person takes the nozzle. He's not to go in the building by himself. Also makes it difficult for a safe search and rescue. The ideal search and rescue is 4 personnel. 2 people will go in and do their search. There's 2 people usually at the door to assist. God forbid something happens to one of the people inside, one of the firefighters inside, those 2 will go in and assist them. Or if they do find someone and they need assistance, they'll come in and help. Or they're also radio communication, if what's going on, if there's something going on outside the building. So it's unsafe for search and rescue also. On EMS calls, our engine assists on EMS calls. Priority 1s, priority 2s, CPRs, difficulty breathing. A lot of times our ambulance will need a 3rd paramedic to assist with patient care. So our 2-man engine will assist. They'll take a paramedic off that engine, and that paramedic will go during that transport. So that leaves 1 person on the engine. That engine's out of service until that ambulance gets back in town. That happened over 200 times last year between the both stations. Also, once the new headquarters moves to the west side, the district on the east side is going to be bigger, which means there's going to be a higher call volume. So you're going to have higher call volume than they have now with a 2-person engine. And as I talk, you guys are going to hear me say 3-person engine, 4-person engine, 2-person engine. So there's studies out there that with fire departments showing the engine manning efficiency. So just for your own education or anybody that's watching. So the most significant research was done in 2010 by the National Institute of Standards and Technology, otherwise known as NIST. And it shows the impact of staffing levels on fire ground operations and firefighter safety. So the results they got was, so on a 4-person engine, that's 4 firefighters on an engine, the results were considered the optimal and recommended standard for organizations like the National Fire Protection Association. 4-person engine allows for critical tasks like search and rescue, fire attack, securing water supply to be performed simultaneously upon arrival. So that's the optimal. 3-person engine crew. This is how we operate at headquarters. We have a 3-person engine at our headquarters. Significantly less effective than a 4-person crew. NIST found a 3-person crew took over 5 minutes longer to complete critical fire ground tasks compared to the 4-person crew. This delay is directly linked to an increased risk of both civilians and firefighters. So that's the 3-person. And the 2-person crew, this is how we operate right now on the East Side Station. Severely limits the amount of work and poses significant safety risk. It does not meet the 2-in, 2-out safety standard for interior operations. 2-person crews are considered ineffective on fire ground operations. So for these reasons, is why I'm, recommending that we hire and we staff our engine on the east side with 3 firefighters. So additional issues compounding with our 2-person engine crew is the headquarters moving to the west side of town. So, which means it's a longer response time now. So back, I want to say approximately around 2015, we staffed an engine at Station 2, at our east side station. Before that, it was just an ambulance. So due to our call volume increasing, we realized they needed fire protection on the east side. So at that time, we proposed a 3-man engine crew on the east side. Financially, it wasn't, supported by the town. So we went with a 2-person engine. Usually, we would never, before be operating with a 2-person engine. The only reason why we did then is because our closest aid was the center of town. So if we did have a bad incident, our closest aid is 4 minutes away. So now with the station moving to the west side, that 4 minutes is becoming 10 or 12 minutes, depending on the location of the incident. So longer response time to the east side, also the increasing call volume. So with the development and the new housing in town, our call volume has steadily increased every year, and we anticipate that to continue. So for an example, in 2024, we increased 200 calls from the year prior. Also, this January through September, we're 151 calls higher than we were last year at this time. Also, from January to September, on 915 occasions, we had double calls, meaning like we had simultaneous calls 915 times from January to September. So that's averaging out a little over 100 a month. So by the end of the year, we'll have over 1,200 times we have simultaneous calls, meaning both stations are empty, we're unavailable to respond, and the next call is coming from mutual aid from out of town. And along with those two, the restructuring of the districts. So as I stated earlier, so when we move to the west side, the town's going to be split in half. So the district on the east side, right now the east side station, that 2-man engine covers 1/3 of the town. That district's going to change to half the town. So now the 2-person engine is going to cover half the town. So that geographical area that it's picking up had over 1,000 calls last year. So that 2-man engine company is going to pick up additional 1,000 calls on the east side of town. So next, how do we address this issue? So I propose increasing our minimum manning from 10 per group to 11 per group. Having 11 per group would put that 3rd guy on that engine. This would give our department to operate safely. Both stations would operate identically, so there'd be a 3-man engine at both stations along with the ALS ambulance at both stations. And this would address all the safety concerns I just spoke about. So we have 2 options. We can hire more firefighters, which would be, like I said, so we need actually 5. We lost 1 due to budget cuts this past year, and to get that 3rd firefighter in the engine, that's 1 person each group, totaling 5. So we either hire 5 firefighters, or we increase our minimum to 11 with our present staffing, which would require increase in overtime cost. So both proposals come with a cost, but not acting comes with a far greater risk. A severe injury or tragic incident caused by understaffing will carry out not only financial consequences, but human consequences. I respectfully urge the town to take a proactive approach and prioritize safety of our community and our personnel over cost considerations. And I would like to give you 2 examples of insufficient staffing from surrounding communities around us. So in the town of Middleborough, last February in 2024, 11-year-old girl was killed in a house fire. At that time, Middleborough responded with a 2-man engine, 1 person on a tower, and an officer in a command vehicle. And I'm coming up on my 30th year here, and I've worked with Middleborough many times on a fire, and They're an excellent department, they're well-trained, they're aggressive, they're excellent firefighters. And that day, they did everything they could to help that girl, and I don't believe they got her out of the building. But with that tragedy, Chief Thompson met with all the town administrators. Within that week, they increased their manning, 2 firefighters per group, and hired 6 firefighters that year. Now they respond, they have two stations open, they have a 3-man engine at both stations. They also had a fatal fire that following December. And that December, their first arriving engine was a 3-man engine. They made entry to the house, pulled the victim out of the house. Victim had no pulse. They did CPR, got the pulse back, transported the person to the hospital. You know, sadly, he succumbed to his injuries. But the fire department were able to do their job. And, you know, they gave that person a chance. Also, as we all heard about, is the Fall River, the assisted living facilities. The Fall River Fire Department had the fire at the assisted living facility. There's 10 deaths, 30 injuries. Fall River is a city, they ran with a 3-person engine. And most cities run with a 4-person engine. So, same thing, after that tragedy, the mayor sat down with the fire chief. That following week, all their engines, I think there's 8 engines, were brought up to 4-man engines. And the mayor got on TV and announced he was hiring 15 to 20 firefighters within the next 2 years. And don't get me wrong, I'm not saying that we're going to have a tragedy like Middleborough or Fall River. You know, I'm not trying to scare anybody or anybody that's listening, but what I do know is we're running at a high risk right now. We're operating below safety standards. We're just increasing the response time to the East Side Station. Our East Side district's becoming larger, and it's going to pick up over 1,000 calls with the 2-man engine. Our overall call volume is increasing every year. And I feel like if this isn't addressed sooner than later, I feel like we're going to get caught. So I'm here, I'm trying to be proactive and not so much reactive. And hopefully we can address this issue sooner than later. What we have done in this past July, we did apply for the SAFER grant. We put in for 5 firefighters. We're still waiting for these grants to get awarded. Right now, everything's on freeze due to the government freezing. So, any questions?
Any questions for the chief?
Thank you, Chief. Does a man work, one of the firefighters work on dispatch?
Yes.
Have you ever, I know there's pros and cons about, what is the regionalization?
Yeah.
Is that expensive? Would that help?
I've talked to it with the town manager. There's a lot involved, and it is definitely in the conversation, and we are talking about it, but it does take time.
Okay. Well, I thank you for it. I'm all for hiring, because I know, I mean, we do have investments in town that we could, you know, I looked at the audit, stabilization funds, and investments that this town could use. So hopefully we will. Thank you.
Thank you.
I have a question also.
Mark has the floor.
Sorry. Sorry.
go ahead.
Okay.
No. Okay. I just wanted to know, I also favor hiring the extra firefighters. Do you have any idea how much this would cost the town?
Yeah, we can speak to that, Chief. So when you count for, if you account for pension, health, and, you know, rates of pay where they are currently, 5 firefighters would be about $750,000. Now, one of the things that Chief Slatz mentioned is that the town applied for the SAFER grant, and so the SAFER grant covers about 75% of a salary for the first, I think, 2 years, and then 25% the year after. But, you know, obviously, I'll let Chief and you finish your questions regarding that, but, you know, $750,000 of operational expenses is not something that we would pull from the stabilization, for example, that was just mentioned, when we balked at $450,000 from our employee liability to cover the additional appropriation in schools this past year. So there's a lot of factors here. I want you to ask your questions, and then I'll chime in further.
Good, Mark.
So thank you, Chief, for clearly outlining that and giving us all the examples and parameters and everything. I, too, am very concerned about the east side and the manpower that we have to do stuff. I don't know who to ask this question to, but a lot of our calls have a lot to do with the university. We have the governor with a project on Hale Street that'll take more resources. Is there any way we can get the university to help us with some of our costs? Because we have quite a few calls, at least EMS, that go to Bridgewater State. I don't know who to ask that to.
Well, one of the things, I'll take this one, Chief. One of the first things that I think is when I came on board, I met with President Clark and I asked him for some additional support and resources for the town. Now, I won't say, it was almost a 10% increase commitment for the next year that he's doing. That hasn't been done for 10 years. Now, it's not a requirement for them to do it, but I asked, and that's what he was able to do. I know in terms of your question about the governor and the administration with the Hale Street property, once again, I think it's tying into the conversation we had initially with the presentation with Zoo. We're trying to leverage these opportunities to get more resources for the town. I know recently we just acquired some additional grants for our fire department as well as our police department. We're looking at applying for other additional grants. So we're going to try to leverage this as much as possible for the benefit of the town, for our fire department, moving forward. I think that sort of addresses your question. I've asked President Clark, we got a little bit of an increase for next year, but that's, they're not required to do that.
So we're getting like money for the park, the mobile station, which still has to happen. I'd rather get that $100,000 personally for firefighters, if there's any way to do that. I just think, our resources are used for 2 state facilities. I love Bridgewater State, but the 10% increase, glad you got it. Should have happened every year for the last X number of years. That $55,000 number stayed the same. And, if they had a severe incident over there, the East Side Fire Station would be the one to cover it, and the West Side Fire Station would be. I just want to see more resources coming from, because grants expire, like you said. It might be a 2-year grant at 75%, and then after that, it's 25%. So how do we sustain that? We don't want to hire a whole bunch of people that we need, and then 3 years later or 4 years later, lay them off, because it's not going to get smaller, it's going to get bigger, so.
I'm glad you mentioned that, because I think tying back to the $100,000 for the gas station, for example, that was a one-time outlay, right? So I think you're absolutely right. This would be an operational expense that would move forward. One thing, and my job and what we're doing, this team is, we're trying to advocate for as much resources as possible for the town. But one thing I would say, in terms of BSU property and state property, the town does get revenue and pilot revenue as part of our state aid that comes to the town as part of our budget. That is factored into our budget. The past couple of years, we've advocated, and I'm on the MMA Fiscal Committee, we've advocated for this administration to increase that funding. They've increased it slightly, so we are advocating for that. We are trying to do that, and those are the avenues and methods that we can do.
Councilor Murphy, did you have something?
Yeah. No, I'm fine.
Okay, sorry. So I guess I don't have a question, Chief Slatch, but I do want to clarify for some folks, because I spent a significant amount of time last spring putting together a plan for the town's override and presented it to the council and citizens. Within that override, we included 4 firefighter positions as part of that, and the result of that didn't pass. But I think this was good information that I wish, we had 7 months ago when that process was ongoing. But I hope that citizens are listening to this now and seeing that demonstrated need doesn't just lie within our schools, but obviously with our fire and police, who also had some positions as part of that. And so if we're trying to fill the gaps through stabilization or other funds, I think that's, almost insulting to the fact that citizens didn't vote for that override. So I don't know where we stand now, and I don't know what that means for the upcoming year, but I appreciate you coming forward and stating that need, because I think folks need to hear that, they need to hear it now and not as the result of an emergency or
Right.
something that occurs in town either.
Thank you.
Thank you, Chief, for your presentation. Do we currently have a grant writer trained for the department, or is it something that someone kind of takes on?
It's our deputy chief
Okay.
usually does it, and he's been very successful.
Okay. I completely agree with the staffing concerns and needing 3 guys on a truck. Having gone out myself, 2 guys on a truck or alone, it's an unsettling feeling when you do that. So we did have an override that didn't go through. I think the SAFE grant is a temporary Band-Aid solution to that. I don't want to see guys get laid off a few years in. So Councilor McGrath brought up the regional. I may have mentioned this to you months ago after your last presentation. The department I worked for did move with Holbrook eventually, which did free up a desk guy to go out the door. And then later on down the line, additional funding that the town was able to come up with added additional manpower there. So I would love to hear more if that is being investigated, if there's progress on that. Not just even for trying to get 3 guys on a rig in both areas, but also dropping a guy on call-outs if you need to, or you can't fill a shift or something. You still have to maintain your staffing. So I'd love to hear more about that if that's an avenue, just in case there isn't funding for that. But thank you for your presentation.
Thank you.
I would just add that Chief Slats has definitely been proactive about this. We've had conversation, and Chief Slats has had these conversations with the council previously and with previous town managers, and I've encouraged him to advocate, and I think it's important for our community to hear these needs and concerns, as Councilor Murphy did say. In terms of your question, Councilor Kennedy, I have some experience with regionalization. I've talked with Chief Slats about that. It does take some time and some process, but we're looking at everything. I think we want to try to get more firefighters out into the road and help our community as best as possible, so we're exploring that.
Thank you.
Any other questions? It's probably a little early for this, but have you guys done a cost-benefit analysis on overtime costs versus hiring additional firefighters? Have you guys gotten that far?
I got a number that's probably not very accurate. I'd have to work with Lori on it.
I imagine it's probably going to be similar because the overtime costs are going to be high, and then hiring additional firefighters is going to reduce total overtime. So I'd imagine it'd be similar. Just a comment, and no, not a question, but I think that this is important information as we enter in our budget discussions going into the spring. We're going to have those conversations early. I think that we need to look at the town budget as a whole and see where we could maybe find some cost savings so that we could allocate more funds. It's obvious that there's a dire need here, or explore other alternatives. But it's a comprehensive problem, and we all need to look at that. And it's our job as the council stewards of the budget, work with the town manager to figure out what we could do about staffing here and the police and fire side for sure. So thank you for the presentation, as always. Really, really appreciate it.
Thank you.
Thank you.
All right.
You are still up, sir.
Yes, moving forward, boards, committees, and commissions process. So a couple of quick notes. First, I know we've talked about this previously, about bringing some boards and committees to the council to report on their activities and what they're doing. In November, tentative of the agenda and how light or heavy it is, we will start that process. We'll start bringing some boards or committees to the council to report on their on what they do. So I'm excited to move that forward. I wanted to, and I know there was concern raised regarding the appointment process for the appointments on the last agenda. And I think it was really important, especially after talking with some councilors, to highlight there's 2 processes, essentially. One, the appointments last agenda were town council appointments. Town council appointments go through a different process than the town manager's appointments. So for town manager appointments, I just want to reiterate our process. An application will come in. That application then comes into Josh, then gets forwarded to our Citizens Advisory Committee. They interview that person. I then have a recommendation gets forwarded to me. Then I have the capability to interview that person, and I have decided to do that on some occasions, some I don't. It then gets forwarded to the town council for consideration and ratification of that appointment. During that process, Josh does notify boards and committee chairs. We encourage, also as part of the CAC, as well as Josh, we encourage them to attend the committee that they're interested in, so they get to know. The town council appointment does not go through that process. It's a town council appointment. So I think if the council is interested in, refining that process to address some of the concerns that were laid out, the town council and the town clerk appointments don't go through the process that town manager appointments go. So I think if you want to focus on that, that might be an area where, one, we could assist, but I think that's the area where we focus on. I think we've got a very robust process for the town manager appointment process. So I just wanted to clarify that for the council.
Any questions on that item?
Through you to the town manager. When the applicants come in to Joshua, does he forward all of them to the citizen advisory?
No. So that's the key part. So, for example, the finance committee will play. The finance committee had openings for town council appointment. So in that case, it would come into Josh. It gets forwarded to Deb, and then ultimately it gets forwarded to the council for consideration. It doesn't go to the CAC. Now, if it's a town manager appointment, it will come into Josh. I get notified. We then forward it to the CAC.
So you get all the applications that come in?
Yes, they all come through Josh. They all come online.
And they're
based
all
on-
forwarded?
Yes.
Okay.
Correct.
Thank you.
Just to clarify, there are town clerk appointments too for the finance committee. There's 333. So, and that wouldn't come through here or the town manager.
Correct. That's what I want to highlight. That would not go through the same process as CAC. So, if you're trying to address the concerns that was raised before, I think that's the area you need to sort of focus on.
Anything else on this one? Okay, thank you.
The next item is just a quick informational component for the municipal aggregation program that the town is launching in December. We are going to be hosting 2 informational meetings. It's posted on our website. It's on our front page, and we put press releases on our Facebook, but I wanted to highlight them tonight real quick. Thursday, October 30th at the council chambers at 6:30 p.m. That meeting will be recorded. We've worked with BCTV to make sure that's recorded. So if you're not able to attend that, it will be recorded. And then we're holding another meeting on Wednesday, November 5th at 1 p.m. at the Senior Center. So I did want to highlight that for the public. We're getting a lot of questions, a lot of calls. So we're looking forward to people attending the informational sessions.
Through you, Mr. President, to the town manager, you answered half of my question. I got a couple of calls from constituents. Some of them are very confused about the whole opt-out process, which I'm sure will be clarified during those sessions, and I'm glad BTV will record it. The other thing I was asked is there a large print edition? Because some of the senior citizens that got them in the mail can't read the type. So I don't know if there's a way. I know that was all mailed out by a company, and I believe they probably paid for the mailing, I would think. It said Town of Bridgewater on it with the company's name. I have not gotten mine. My neighbor next door to me got hers. The other neighbor didn't, so they might be going different days. But I'm just wondering, like when people vote, like for the ballot questions, the state will print out some larger type stuff. It goes to like the library and places like that. Just a thought, not looking to add more expense, but
No.
I got 5 calls asking about it.
Counselor, that's a good plan. So what I've typically done during this process, and what we'll do here as well, is particularly when we go to the senior center, you're right, the postage and the cost for the mailers were by the Colonial Power Group. The town did not outlay any cost. And by the way, the town doesn't have any outlay in this cost of this program at all. But what I've typically done when we go to the senior center, for example, we do get some of those mailers and we do try to blow them up and have them available at those meetings. So we will do that here. I think that addressed your question. And in terms of timing of the mailings too as well, a major component of this is the post office. It's very interesting, and I've done this now 3 times. It's very interesting that you'll see a neighbor will get a mailer, and then a mailer doesn't arrive for 1 week for the next neighbor. This is something that I don't have an answer for. There's no way to mitigate it. But one other thing that I do want to sort of address too is depending on if you have a third-party supply, you will not get the same mailer that someone's on basic service rate. If you have a block on mailings that you've addressed to National Grid, you will not get a mailer. We won't be able to mitigate that. So it really is dependent on the resident as well. But what I'm encouraging people to do, if they're interested in the program, we've created a dedicated page for municipal aggregation. It's on our website. We have it on the front page. You can call my office, but we have Colonial Power Group, who's our consultant. They can address calls specifically. You know, we've had questions about, I have solar, you know, I have a residential discount. How am I impacted? Colonial Power Group is willing, and this is part of their contract with the town. They're willing to help. And we're having the informational sessions. So I'm really encouraging people, if they have questions, feel free to go to our website. We have FAQ page there. Feel free to call Colonial Power Group. Feel free to call my office. Feel free to come to the informational sessions. Trying to help answer those questions.
Any other questions from councilors? Okay.
Finally, the final item I have for fiscal year 26 budget update. I know in the packet, I included a letter from our department heads in regards to sort of some further efforts that we've done to address the fiscal year 26 budget and the post-supplemental appropriation. I want to take a moment to, thank, especially after our last council meeting, the collaboration between our collective bargaining groups. We've had contracts that were settled before I got here, and that we've worked and we've collaborated. We've reduced COLAs for this year and next year. Those are not easy things to do, but we've collaborated. And I want to publicly say thank you to those groups that we've collaborated with. BAW in particular, you know, AFSCME, our library groups, our DPW, and there's ongoing efforts to talk with our police and fire unions. But I also want to thank our department heads, because they are atypical of our process. They don't have steps in COLAs. They all uniformly work with me to reduce their COLAs this year to help us navigate this budget. So I really want to say thank you. I appreciate the collaboration regarding that. As I mentioned when we did the post-supplemental budget, I was going to work hard with the team to address this budget and make sure we made decisions that would not only address this fiscal year budget, but budgets moving forward. And we've done that. And I think as we go into this next process of fiscal year 27 budget, these decisions, these collaborations will help us navigate that budget next year. So I want to thank people regarding that. I included in the packet a report from the MMA that is garnering a lot of buzz in the Commonwealth. I'm part of the MMA Fiscal Policy Committee, and this is work that we've done in sort of navigating and trying to address what we feel is a lack of support from Beacon Health in terms of getting the local the revenue that we need to address our local concerns. You know, when we say Bridgewater isn't atypical, it's a fact. I was part of a finance committee panel this past Saturday. Over 60 communities went for overrides this year. And it was a difficult climate to engage in those override discussions. But this is not anything unique to Bridgewater or other communities. We haven't lost the capability to do finances in this past year. I know there's been calls and questions for audits and different things like that. We're capable of doing this work. We know what we're doing, but there's a lack of revenue. And there's a lot of wants, there's a lot of needs. So as we move forward, my job is to advocate, as I mentioned before, advocate for more additional revenue. We're asking the council members to advocate with our state reps and our governor and that team to advocate for more revenue. But there's no answer for this. Health insurance, we had a report, health insurance last year rose on average 12%. There was another panel saying this year might be even worse than the previous year. Prop 2.5 and where we're at right now is not able to address those needs. So this is going to engender a deeper conversation about this budget moving forward, fiscal year 27. And to that end, we've already started meeting with Superintendent Powers. We're meeting with Rainham early. We're starting our process earlier. So we're really looking forward to, diving in, because as you heard from Chief Slats, there's a lot of wants, there's a lot of needs, and so that makes this a difficult budget process. So just wanted to highlight that.
Thank you. Do you have any questions for our town manager?
Could I just make a comment to him?
Sure.
Through you to the town manager. Thank you very much. This is really helpful to have this kind of depth of understanding of what's going on with you. And Mark says he's had a lot of questions about the
Aggregation program.
aggregation, yeah, the municipal. You would think I would know that with my husband, but I've had a lot of calls about the school. And so I just wanted to say, the questions that I was asked is, given that we know that the schools are struggling, which I think that's very clear, what are the options available to bring them the necessary funding and support that they need to have appropriate class sizes, appropriate class subjects, and appropriate teachers? And if you can just tell us how you're going to look at that and how you're going to do it, because I don't know. But I know it's a big deal. I have people calling me saying, we're going to leave town. We have to move because our kids aren't getting what they need here in the schools. So I don't know what to tell them, so I'm just passing it on to you. Thank you.
On that note, I believe it might come up later under committee reports, but I know we have two representatives from this council, the president and Councilor Striggles, just had a meeting recently with the Budget Ad Hoc Working Group. That is a pressing question. Obviously, we heard from the fire department today. We got to deal with the schools, and we haven't heard from the police department. So I know the number crunchers are going to have an awful lot of work to do, but those are questions that affected my family personally, and it's not an easy question to answer.
I have one thing. Is there something that we can do? I mean, the governor is up for re-election, and Massachusetts is the 7th highest paid taxes, and we get the less back. National-wise, most states get 31% back. We only get 26. So, I mean, maybe we can use that leverage where she has competition this year, and we need to get the money back. And even, I've been looking into it, but I read somewhere, and I can't verify, but the millionaire tax that she gets is supposed to go to education. She put that in her budget, because her budget's $60.1 billion this year. So, I mean, as a town and connecting with other towns, maybe we can stand and push against her to get her to give more of our money back to us as the other states get.
So I think one part of that is that report that's a part of this packet that I really think is really important for the public to take a look at. Is you're right. In comparison to nationwide, we get less from state government than other states. I would say that we've been talking about this for some years, actually. But this past year, the Fiscal Policy Committee in May said we need to actually expend some funds to do a report and come up with recommendations and ideas. So this is the year that we're moving forward with that. I wouldn't just say it was just the governor as well. The legislature passed the mechanism for the millionaire surtax, and there's the surtax gets funded towards more gateway communities, and that's what the nature of how it was developed and it operates. So the question is, do we look at changing funding formulas, et cetera? That's not a conversation just for the governor, and that's why I mentioned that. If we're concerned about these things, the public's concerned about it, our council's concerned about it, we need to work with our legislators as well, because that's the mechanism to make the changes that we're looking for. So we're advocating for it at our professional association level. I know the superintendents are doing the same thing as well. So we're trying to move forward and trying to address these issues. I don't think they happen overnight either, but at least we're bringing them to the attention, and we're trying to address this issue moving forward.
On Councilor McGrath's note and our town manager's answer, we have a legislative delegation. We have former Councilor Gallagher, who's our state rep, and we have a state senator who we haven't seen here yet. So maybe the next time that Councilor Gallagher is going to be here, we bring both of them here to address our concerns. And a lot of the money that came from the millionaire's tax, and Justin will probably back me up on this, they took a lot of it for transportation, for the T. It didn't all go back to cities and towns. I mean, that millionaire's tax was targeted, and because the T's in such financial issues, a lot of that money is going to that system. And then, of course, we get MBTA communities, and we're having to make expenses on our level. So something's got to give. But that report, I think, was very helpful, at least to me, to understand some more.
Any other comments or questions?
Yes, my only comment through you to the town manager is, when are we going to have our training rescheduled? Yes. obviously I'm not getting any less pregnant, so I would like to be able to participate at a high level. I have 8 weeks to go, so if we could get that rescheduled just so that I can participate with my fellow counselors, I'd appreciate it. It was postponed for a very valid reason, but I do think that it is still very important to this council to have it and to our residents as well.
I know it's a priority for the council. Deb is helping assist with scheduling that training for all of us collaboratively. I know we've sent a couple of emails regarding that, and we're working to try to reschedule that and make sure we accommodate all the schedules there. So Deb's really taking a point on that, so we appreciate that effort.
Can I make a suggestion on that point too, to the council president? I'd like to actually see it here in this room. Yes. And I'd like to see it recorded so we have the information just in case the counselor can't make it, which I know she wants to make every effort to do, but things happen, and things could happen with other people. I mean, it's better in person, don't get me wrong, but I just think this is where we do the public's business. It's a posted meeting. We have the equipment. Beast TV will probably help us, but I'm just hoping that we could possibly do that.
Okay.
Could I say one? Excuse me. I had it written on for my final comments, so I'll just,
A comment, or are we still on the budget presentation?
we're still in the budget presentation, but we've
Yeah, we're kind of
gone
off,
into
but
the,
Yeah.
so if I just say a couple more things that go with that, because some of what each of the two counselors have said goes with what I had written down. I think it's really important to invite the public. They need to know what we need to do, just like we need to know what we need to do. They need to know what we need to do, so when they come and ask us things, they're only asking us unreasonable things that a town council can't do any about. They could still come and talk to us, but what their expectations are. And I definitely think it needs to be recorded, because when we sit here and listen to it, after it's all done, 3 months later, something might come up, and one of you is saying, well, we had to do 2 times this, and somebody else is saying, well, no, we had to do 3 times this, so let's go back and listen to it and see what we were actually taught that we need to do. And then also, there are potentially new counselors coming on in April when we have the election, and they need to be trained. So if we have the training already recorded, that we can share it with them. These things just seem important to me. This town council, not just us, the town council for Bridgewater that's been here since we've been declared a city, has never had this kind of a training. And I think it's really important. So I hope we can get it done, and I hope we can have it recorded, and I hope we can have it here so people can attend and listen, etc. Thanks. Now I'm done.
Thank you.
I just want to point out a comment on the budget.
Sorry, we're going to go back to the budget.
We are going
All right,
back to the budget? Okay. Okay. This is just a comment, and as I was looking at it, property tax collections are 16 million, 25% of the budget. Cherry Sheet, 24% of the budget. Local receipts, 22% of the budget. Now, people wonder why the building keeps going on in town. Well, building permits, zoning permits, electrical permits, that's 22% of our budget. So we're very dependent on the building continuing to make the revenue of our budget. Just wanted to point out that observation.
Thank you. Anything further?
And I just wanted to apologize. I thought we were moving into what we wanted to potentially see for
that's
the
all
next
right.
meeting. I thought everyone was done with the budget, so.
I was waiting for my comments at the end here. But more of a comment, a bit of a question. It's kind of macroeconomical. I'm looking at this, and it looks very dire for suburban communities. Bridgewater, according to this, is a suburban community. State aid is extremely low. Education spending, the growth rate is low. The average wages are not growing at an appropriate rate. And tax rate in Massachusetts is, as Councilor McGrath said, is 7th highest in the country, and we're in the lowest for return back to the community. So what are we to do to that other than go to our residents and ask for an override that's going to be a fix maybe for a certain amount of time? I don't like to say that it's not fair to put it on the residents, but it's not. And I don't know what the exact solution is, and I think that's something that we have to think about for the long term. But I know that us as a council, work with the town manager, we do everything that we can to find in our budget to reduce expenses as much as possible, because it's possible that if we do put another override to the public in the next year or two, however long until that may be decided, that it's going to fail. People are just simply not going to be able to afford it because they don't want this to go on their backs. They're already paying enough in state taxes. So more of just a general comment, more kind of a macro economical question. I don't know if you have any comments to that, but we'll be having those discussions in the months to come.
No, we'll have a good fiscal year 27 budget discussion this year.
Well, thank you. So with that being said, that is it for the town manager's report. Do we have any questions or rather requests, comments for future town council meeting? Yeah.
Through you to the town manager. Mr. Casanova, did we do a follow-up with Mr. James Stanley from the shelter that came forward last town council meeting?
Yes, but I can follow up further regarding that at the next meeting.
Okay, if there's a way, it's not the first complaint, so I was just wondering, as a town council at large, those are my residents that are in the shelter. Is there any way that I could get a list so I could go visit them and make sure that they're, talk to them to make sure that this is not going through all of them, or if they're safe? You want to get back to me? Okay.
We might be crossing into some privacy stuff too, so these are,
Well, I mean,
these are private citizens and where they reside, and
Right, but I mean, they're residents, and I'm a council at large, and this is the second individual have brought it up, so I'm just going in, and they don't have to talk to me. I go to the senior place, and they don't have to talk to me, but they're my residents.
no, I completely understand what you're saying. I'm just saying there will be probably some privacy implications with seeking personal information of people.
Yeah, okay. I was just going to talk to them about their own well-being, if they want to talk to me, but that's fine. You'll get back to me. The other thing, I know you, not that I'm tired of bringing this up, but it gets brought up to me all the time from the residents. Yesterday, Aggie Bus did not show up again. So the kids were not showed up. So this is the third time in 2 months. And once again, when the parents called the superintendent, told that they laid off, because of budgets, their transportation person. So the parents are stuck between the buses, the owns the buses, and no one else. So not all parents could drive their kids yesterday. Most of them, the parents will, carpool. But a lot of the kids missed school yesterday because parents didn't know. And that's it.
Anything else for a town manager?
I have two things. One, can we identify who's responsible for updating the signage, the physical signage around town, the ones with the Bridgewater seal on it? I noticed that not only are the town meetings listed with dates and times, but now sometimes topics will appear on those signs too, and I'm not sure who's determining that or who's deciding what topics go up there. And I'll just say it because we're talking it. My opinion is it should come from the town manager's office if we're communicating as a town on some of these items. So if you could just clarify for us the process for that next time. And then my second topic would be an update on the town center safety. I know you had talked about with the CED director maybe addressing some short-term improvements for pedestrian safety down there, and just wondering if there's an update or maybe where that's going long-term.
Could I take just a quick minute with that? Those signs are put up by the town clerk's office. So the town manager's office, I'm sure, could take it over if he wanted to, but it's been the town clerk's thing to do since way before I was town clerk, so years before then. And the person who's setting it up right now is the same person who was doing it when I left a couple of years ago. So you could talk to the town clerk, or you could talk to him. I could give you his name and say, but I don't know what to say about how to, the person who's setting it up kind of picks what he knows is going on and puts it up on those boards.
Thank you.
I just wanted to thank, through you, I just wanted to thank the town manager for his help in addressing the situation on Summer Street with all the construction and the business that's been adversely affected over there. There should be a light at the end of the tunnel, and we got a pipeline or a sewer or a water project going there too, but I got asked by constituents to find out, and he right away talked to the building superintendent and other folks to get the information so I could get back to the business owner and some of the other people that called me about it.
Thank you. Anything else? Okay. Thank you very much. We do not have anything for discussions. Do I have any committee reports? No? Okay. Next up, legislation for action. We have proposed ordinance DFY 26-002, amendment to the Bridgewater Town Charter to Article 4, Section 4-1, Town Manager Term of Office. Does anybody from Rules and Procedures have any comments, or do we need any amendments to this before we look for a motion to send to advertising?
Yeah, we were going to do amendment on this.
Do you want to make a motion for amendment and read it into the record?
Yeah, make a motion.
And then do we have a second?
Second.
Second?
So where it says replace existing language, we're going to take off, we're going to put in what the existing language is right there in parentheses. And it will say, the town council shall appoint by majority vote of the full town council a town manager. And then it will continue with the following, the town manager shall. So we just want to put that in between, replace an existing language, that part, and then continue it.
Okay.
Is that clear?
Do you have it in writing?
I have it in writing.
Do you want to submit it to Deb?
Okay.
First one. Back. Is that it? I was going to
It was, we weren't changing the whole section 4.1, we're just changing one sentence.
Okay. Counselor Rollins, do we need Deb to bring that back to us to read it verbatim into the record and then?
Yes, please.
Okay. Do you have that there, Deb?
Mike.
Second paragraph, replace existing language. The town council shall appoint by a majority vote of the full town council, comma, a town manager with the following. Did I read that right, Mary?
Are you comfortable with that, John and Mark? You both voted?
Yes.
Okay. So we have a motion on the floor. Any further discussions on the amendment? Nope. All those in favor?
Aye.
Any opposed? All right, motion carries. So now that the amendment has been made, I'm looking for a motion to refer to advertising.
So moved.
There's a
Second.
motion and a second. Any discussion on referring this over to advertising? Okay, seeing none. All those in favor?
Aye.
Any opposed? Okay, motion carries. Next, we have proposed ordinance DFY 26-003, amendment to the Bridgewater Town Charter, and this is for Article 8, Section 8-2, citizen referendum petition timeframe. Again, I'll ask Rules and Procedures if they have any updates on this one, but it seems pretty straightforward, but if you want to give us a summary for this one.
Sure. So this was a topic that was brought up from the Charter Review Committee. Two of these items, the last one and this one, were both that came out of that. So the purpose was to bring it to the council level for discussion because out of respect for a lot of the work that was done on that committee, and we will need one in the future as well. So I want to make sure we respect that and at least have a discussion at the council level, whether we agree or disagree, it takes place. So for this one, this changes the time frame for the referendum from 10 days, I believe, to 30 days. One question that I would have for my fellow councilors is 30 days too much, or should we shorten it by a small amount? Because we're going from 10 to 30. That was a conversation that we had in Rules and Procedure. I don't know if anyone's considered this at all. I'm not necessarily for or against changing it. I see benefits of both, but just for the purpose of discussion, I just wanted to propose that.
Great, thank you. So with that being said, we could have I'm looking for a motion to refer to advertising and then any discussion.
Motion.
Motion to refer, and then we have a second. Thank you. Any discussion before we send to advertising? We could hash out the 30 days now or wait until we have a public hearing.
I would agree with Councilor Kennedy that it doesn't seem to be something that it could go either way. I do think that meeting in the middle does feel like a better approach. I think 30 days is jumping a little too much in time frame when our legislative body has to move at a certain pace as well. So I do think that between 15 and 21 days seems to be a fair alternative and a compromise that I think everyone could potentially be okay with.
Right. Any further comment, Mark?
I was kind of looking maybe at 20, between 10 and 30, 20 days. It gives you, or actually, well, in that case, I would say 21, only because it's 3 weeks. And if it's calendar days, it gives people a lot more time than what we have right now.
I would just like to make the comment that I think that the proposed 30 days that the Charter Committee recommended for a change is good because it gives the citizens a chance to be involved. And all of us depend upon our constituents to let us know which way we should go. So I'm in favor of the 30-day as proposed already.
Yeah, I think that, like I said, we can leave this as is if we want and honor the Charter Committee, or if anybody wants to make a motion to amend now, but we could just hash it out in the public hearing if we'd like. Ms. McGrath?
Yeah, I think one of the reasons we thought 30 is because one of the residents told us, or at least me, that they put forth a petition, and because it wasn't worded right, it had to go back, so now they had to get the names, but I think they had to get different names. I'm not sure if I'm doing that correctly, but I knew that was the time limit didn't help.
Okay. All right, and unless anyone wants to make any amendments to the 30 days, we could just go ahead and go for a vote.
Could I say something else, not about the 30 days? And I'm not sure I'm appropriate. When we've got the listings of the Board of Assessors, the fire, all of this, is that for the next one coming up?
That's the next one. That's the
Okay,
next one.
all right, okay, then I have nothing to say.
Yeah, I think a discussion hearing from citizens at the public hearing would be a good thing. I'm sitting around 21 days myself, mostly to prevent, mostly because we are elected to make decisions. We do need an access for citizens to be involved. 30 days is an extended amount of time, and having something not be able to move forward for an entire month is quite a lot. I know 7 days doesn't seem like a big move back, but it is definitely more than 10, but I would like to hear from the citizens at a public hearing before we amend it.
Okay. Yeah, so why don't we go ahead and go for a vote on this, and then we could always make that amendment in the public hearing. So
Could I say I wasn't exactly wrong, I think, because it lists the heads of department heads here, and I noticed in both this one and the next one, the town clerk wasn't ever listed.
We're not on that.
We're not on that
Oh,
one.
you're not on that one now? I thought we were on the second one.
Just a clarifying question, maybe to the town attorney, before we move to the vote, if I could.
yeah, sure.
It says in here that shall immediately be reconsidered for the measure, so the town council would then have to immediately reconsider the measure upon receipt of the petition. What's the definition of immediately? How do you define immediately?
I didn't draft this.
It may be something to consider. I just immediately, or shall I read like the following meeting or something a little more?
Something more clarifying.
Yeah.
I think if you want to have a discussion about it, I'd be on board because I do think that is ambiguous, and we should find at least a way to define it that works not only with recognizing a referendum that the citizens want to put forward, but also realizes that we all have maybe a few days' notice that we may need to actually sit in for something that is as important.
Yeah.
And genuinely, the hope is that, you know, it would be something to the point where citizens would be so concerned that they would be doing this, because it's a lot to do something like this. So I know issues have come up in the past, but yeah, I think that's an appropriate conversation to try to work out.
To our town council, can we make that amendment at the public hearing that's not too far outside the scope?
Yeah, I mean, I think it's a good idea.
Because this does have to be advertised, so I want to make sure that once it's advertised,
Yeah,
we can
no,
make that change.
I think you're fine. I think anything you would amend, as long as it works within the confines of what you're trying to accomplish here, and the public has proper notice that really what you're trying to do is change the amount of days, right? But those kind of terms being defined are really important. Those are the kind of things that I think are often missing in the charter, so
Yeah.
I tend to agree with that.
Council Kennedy, it was the only thing that you changed was the 30 days in this, right? This is stated
Correct.
right straightly from the charter?
Yes.
So the only thing we changed was the number of days?
The only thing we change is the number of days, but the way that the order is written, it says that we can replace the purpose is to replace the existing language, and it does contain the entire language, so.
So it does, this Thai language is what's in the charter, but we only changed the 30 days?
Correct.
That was my understanding, okay.
I guess.
This could be an opportunity to, while we're doing this, get it right.
Change it more?
Yeah, I was going to say, I guess to that point, why I brought it up is I think when the council reconsiders it may play into the amount of days we're asking for a lead time up to that.
Yeah.
Right? So if we meet on average every 14 days, are we giving folks essentially 2 meetings before we see it reappear again? I think it's good to kind of think of it that way too. And that was my thought process too.
All right, so as long as everyone's okay with it, we'll move it forward to advertising as is. So we'll go ahead and put it to a vote. All those in favor?
Aye.
Aye.
Any opposed? Okay, motion carries. And then last for legislation for action, we have proposed General Ordinance D FY 26-004, amendment to Chapter 3, Article 2, Section 1, Business and Ethics and Conduct. And I know that Councilor Kennedy has something on this before we discuss.
Yep, so there's a few things with this at the moment. So one, to answer a citizen's question, because it was prompted tonight, the reason why this isn't an umbrella is actually part of the reason why I'm going to ask for this to be continued to the next meeting, which is some of these do fall into collective bargaining issues, and I don't want to put the town, I don't think any of us do want to put the town in a position where we're violating a contract. So I'd like to continue this further. And another part of this, I know my councilors have probably noticed, there's a large amendment change to the entire section. And the reason for that change for the entire section is because the process, the way that we go about this has changed. The information is now retained at the state level through a state website instead of at the clerk's office, which was the prior, which is what we currently have in there. So there's kind of multiple components of this that changed, and kind of a large one. But so I'll be looking to make a motion to continue this.
Second.
Second. Any discussion on the motion to continue?
I just wanted to commend Councilor Kennedy. It takes a lot of skill to not only be on rules and procedures, but to know when you sometimes have to pump the brakes on what we're doing to make sure that we're getting wording and legalities correct. So I just wanted to give you kudos for pulling it back, giving it a little bit more time so that we can make sure when we're sending something to advertising that it's exactly how it needs to be.
Thank you.
And now,
Yes.
I noticed in reading through these things that the town clerk wasn't ever mentioned in here. The town clerk is an elected position, but it also falls into these categories of needing to report and do all of the things that need to be done. So just adding that there. That's
Sure, I'll investigate that as well to make sure that.
Okay. Anything further? Okay, all those in favor of continuing the next meeting?
Aye.
Aye.
Any opposed? All right, motion carries. Okay, we do not have any old business, and we do not have any new business. We'll now move on to citizen comments. Due to Massachusetts open meeting law requirements, discussions will not take place during public comment periods. If appropriate, responses to questions and concerns will be given by the town manager at a future town council meeting. Anyone may comment at this time for up to 3 minutes. Please state your name and address for the record.
Thank you, John Donna, 261 South Street. I appreciate the opportunity to get up and speak here at the town meetings as a resident. I find it just as important, too, to stay through the meeting and hear the questions you ask from the different, different...
Counselors?
Yeah, yes, and the water department and the fire and all the guest speakers. So I think it's important for us to hear that, and I think it's also equally important that we hear your closing comments too. You sit here and listen to us, all night, and my point is, if I was on your side of the table and someone came in here and criticized the council for what they've done and intentionally overspoke their time, I find that I'd be very bothered by that if I were you. Personally, I find it inconsiderate and improper, and I would never intentionally overstate my time, and I try to make the effort to hear the whole meeting and hear your closing comments too. The other matter, and let me know when my time's up, I like to talk about things that are relevant to the town, because this is a Bridgewater Town Council meeting. But there were some residents who did speak on federal government, federal agents, and I do feel compelled to speak to that too, since stated. Personally, I find it refreshing how transparent the Trump presidency is. You can turn on any news station anytime during the day, pretty much, and hear what he's talking about, what he's planning to do, who he's visiting with. He takes questions from the press. It's far more transparent than anything we saw in the last administration. I also find it very comforting that the current administration takes an interest in what's going on in the border, taking concern about who's coming in here, as opposed to just turning a blind eye to it, and taking an interest in law and order in what's going on in our cities and towns. And I heard about a couple of residents speaking about ICE wearing masks. I wonder about that too, and I wonder if it's maybe because they're just federal workers, probably not the ones that are dictating policy, but the ones who are asked to carry it out. And they're being tracked by these hordes of people who are trying to disrupt them, in some cases be violent against them. I mean, they have family too. They're probably concerned for the safety of their families, and if their identities are revealed, their families are in jeopardy. I personally am appalled by the way our federal government agents are treated. They're not making policy. They're out there doing their jobs like everybody else's. Thank you.
Thank you, John. And thank you for your respectful comments. And thanks for staying to the end.
Okay, I wasn't going to speak. Chris Ajemian, 221 Aldrich Road. I don't know whether to laugh or cry to hear somebody say that this government that we are suffering under is transparent and that they're doing things for the benefit of our citizens. We recently had a No King's Day in Bridgewater, part of 2,600 protests and demonstrations across the country. In Bridgewater, we had between 500 and 600 people who stood out on the common and expressed their displeasure and their disagreement with masked ICE agents. Police departments carry out a difficult job every single day, and they don't wear masks. So this is part of intimidation. It's part of instilling fear. Sure, we have an immigration problem, but the immigration problem has gotten to the point that it's gotten because nobody wanted to do anything about it, both parties. So please, I just had to speak and say that I really did. There's another whole other bunch of people out there who think differently and are not at all happy with the state of the country and the road that we're on. And that's all I have to say. Thank you.
Thank you. Anyone else like to come and speak?
Mr. President, members of the council, residents still in attendance, MJ Spagone, 5 Lakeshore Center, Unit 1128. I would like to express my appreciation this evening for Mr. Etaniro and Chief Schlach presenting to both you as the council and also to residents in town. I find it important that we get that type of information, that type of knowledge from our colleagues in government and from fellow officials. As the chairwoman of the Finance Committee, I certainly find it very refreshing and informative to hear this information firsthand from the officials, not just in a financial advisory type of capacity. I certainly look forward to hearing from other officials in town, Mr. Town Manager, to hear more about what their departments do. It's good to hear from the DPW that the water issues are not as severe as publicly perceived. That gives me a bit of comfort. I do tend to have concerns about the water quality in the town, knowing the levels of iron and manganese. It is something that is important, not just to me as a resident, but someone who actually does use the water a lot. But the public safety aspect of it, where that leads into the fire department, that certainly concerns me about knowing that we'll have a new fire department building online in a very short term, but also the other fire station will now have a staffing level that will not necessarily be adequate to the new needs of basically a reformulated fire coverage district. I would express my concern as a resident, but from a financial aspect, I'd like to see what we can do to try to make it happen, that we can not only obtain additional firefighters, get them trained, to get them on to staff, but also to be able to retain them going forward. And as chair of the Finance Committee, Mr. President, I will work vigorously with the town manager and have the members of my committee have those conversations when that information is brought to us. If it is something that we can get more firefighters for, and by extension also maybe additional police officers, that is something I personally would like to see, but also from a financial aspect, I'd like to make sure it's sustainable for the town going forward. Thank you, Mr. President.
Thank you. Okay, we'll go ahead and now move on to council comments. Councilor Lindy, I'll begin with you on my left.
Thank you, Mr. President. I wanted to thank all the citizens that have stuck through us through the beginning to the end of the meeting, and for all the comments that came up, whether I agreed or disagreed with them. The great late Tip O'Neill said, all politics is local. We have a lot of community issues to address, very complicated issues that we have to take a lot of time for. Unfortunately, the federal funding trickles down to the state and then seems to dry up once it gets to our level. So, the thought of bringing our legislative delegation here to address it, I know, I believe shouldn't say counselor, he was a counselor, Representative Gallagher was able, I believe, to get his earmarks through, and there is going to be, I believe, money for Town River Landing that he earmarked. I think he got his Rainham as well. The school funding has to be addressed, okay? And I hate to say it, and it can't be just Bridgewater alone or Rainham alone. The small suburban school districts, and BR is a bigger school district, we don't get our fair share. It took a lawsuit in the city of Brockton, multiple lawsuits, multiple times. It took years. That funding formula was passed in 1993. It's now time to look at it again, because I'm fearful we go for another override. Personally, I think the result will be the same no matter how much we educate people. We need all of these services, and it's not getting easier. We also have to look at our tax rate. It's not popular to ever increase it. We have high taxes in Massachusetts, but I think our local tax rate has stayed the same for years, long before I lived here. We have a different business, we have the same business rate and the same residential rate. I know we want to attract businesses, but we need money. So we're going to have a lot of interesting discussions. Luckily, we have, I think, and I'm just going to say it, a financial wizard that knows numbers from being prior experience. And he can't pull a rabbit out of a hat, but there's a lot of stuff we have to talk about. More activities going on this weekend in town. There's a safety walk. I'm sure Marilee will probably talk about it more than I. This Saturday over at the middle school, a walk for safety. And we've had a lot of wonderful events, farmers market, different things, more stuff planned for Town River Landing. And, you know, I also wanted to mention that I thought there was a wonderful story in the Enterprise about a female football player on the BR team. So that was one of the highlights of reading Bad News All Week. Thank you.
Thank you.
Thanks. I do want to follow up on that and say there is the Walk for Survivor Safety that's taking place from 9:30 to 2 o'clock on Saturday at the O'Donohue School, which is the middle school, if nobody's ready to remember the name already, since we've just been changed. And it is put on by Family and Community Resources in Brockton. For years before, like any of you were here, but I'm old and I was here. Adeline might have still been here. The town council in Bridgewater, not the town council, the town selectmen always gave money to the service providers in other towns that provide services for Bridgewater. And we stopped doing that in about 2008 when we stopped paying the town council or the town select board. But this is one of those services. They've been providing great services for Bridgewater for years, and all the other. So if anybody can come, it's $10 to buy a t-shirt and walk around town, and they'll have other little things that are there for kids to play and stuff like that. So just a short bit, but it'll be a fun walk. And then I wanted to say something else very fun that my husband and I did over the weekend was go over to BP and take the tour of their schools, which was really great. Wonderful to see the kids so enthusiastic and so helpful. All of them there. It was packed with people. I put up a couple pictures that I took over there, and I put up the box that I got from their it isn't a cafeteria over there, it's where they learn to cook. So it's all of them cooking all the foods and all the sweets and selling them. And my box is completely empty because we ate everything, so I didn't get to bring anything here. But it felt really good to be in a school where they felt really good about everything that was going on, and they're waiting for their new building to be open next year. And so I just encourage people. I put their phone number and their address on it for little tear-off sheets. If anybody wants to take it and go over and have breakfast or lunch over there, they serve it in the restaurant that the kids do all the work for, the cooking and the work. That's it.
Thank you. Councilor Murphy.
Yeah, I just want to make a few quick updates. I know that the Lights on the Common crew in the 4th of July committee have some upcoming events. And so I think it's this Friday at Tropical Smoothie downtown. There's a fundraiser for the Lights on the Common. On Saturday, there's a trunk or treat at the Town River Landing. And on November 1st is Black Hat Brewery, again, for Lights on the Common. So plenty of events, and I know they're advertising throughout social media, chances to attend. But some great causes and great people putting that stuff together, so just encouraging folks to get out and attend those events.
Thank you. Councilor Striggles.
Thank you. Thank you to everyone who came to the meeting tonight, including my own father, who he had to leave because he is in private transport. He owns a company and he has to be up very early, but he sat right behind the town manager for most of the meeting. So it was very nice to see him at the meeting supporting me. We don't always have to agree, but I always appreciate the engagement. And I'm also one that doesn't shy away from things that come up. So I really just want to set the record straight. I am very much a resident of the town of Bridgewater. I find it very, very, very concerning that anyone would think otherwise. I stand for high moral character. My family has been in this town for a very long time, has served this town well, and I was raised right. So I want everyone to be rest assured that I am very much a resident of Bridgewater and a taxpayer. I wanted to make sure that people continue to support Boundless Beam. I was very, very, very moved over the weekend seeing the outreach that this community specifically has been able to do for a very cherished business. They are facing severe difficulties just getting the foot traffic that they're used to, even from the college. So if you need some extra caffeine, I can only have a little bit every day, so I have to monitor it myself, but I can't wait to be back in Boundless Bean having whatever I would like after I have my baby. And I just want to extend my personal thanks to President Loretti for taking time this weekend to work through some things with me and to also be a great partner as we work with the Budget Subcommittee to ensure that when we're bringing something in front of the taxpayers, to ask them for us to use taxpayer-paid money, that we're doing it in their best interest. So I just wanted to say thank you for that.
Thank you. Councilor Ellenberg.
Thank you. I just wanted to repeat what Mary Lee said about the Walk for Safety on Saturday. The Osamequin Club will be participating also. We expect to have a table and quite a few members there. I also wanted to thank Fire for Effect Foundation, which did a fantastic farmers market and craft fair. I had the pleasure of participating, selling my books. Mary was keeping me company for a while, saw a lot of people coming by. Anyway, had a wonderful time. Thank you to Al Lacerda and all the people who were involved. Thank you for the residents for coming out. That's all.
Thank you. Councilor Kennedy.
Yep. A lot of stuff was already covered, so I'm not going to backtrack. But please, everyone, support your local businesses and please go to these events. They're really what a community is all about, that our other councilors have mentioned. I do have one thing to bring up on Monday, October 27th, it's going to be the first meeting of the BRC PAC, which is the, for our district, it's the Special Education Parent Advisory Council. So if someone has any questions, there's going to be a speaker there you can ask questions to. You can find more information about it on the Facebook page, which is really the main point of contact for the group. But it's the first time that group is going to meet for the school year so far. So it is located at the Bridge Center. It's on the 27th at 6 o'clock. So hopefully some parents, or if you know parents that have children on IEPs, 504s, you can take your kid, you can show up, get some information that can help, and try to get involved in that. And as always, thank you for the citizens, especially those who stick it out to the end, and my fellow councilors. Thank you guys for taking the time.
Thank you. And Vice President McGrath.
Thank you, Mr. President. The trunk or treat is going to be there, and my daughter wrote me in, so I'll be helping her with her trunk again for the second year. And as a Christian, I will always stand by my fellow Christians, the late Charlie, and now his wife, Erica.
Thank you. I go last, so everybody already gets to mention all the great events, but there's a lot of talk about national politics, and I would encourage everybody to really keep their focus on local. Obviously, the national stage is popular, but we should really be focusing on our community here and everything that we could do to improve it. With that being said, I'm not going to be rescinding my comments. They were my comments. I do like to think that I speak as well as I can for this council. And if anybody wants to go back and listen to my comments for that day, they were on the heels of 9/11. They were also on the same day that we proclaimed Bridgewater as a community of peace. And if you listen to my comments, they're about unity and about speaking against any sort of act of political violence and speaking about the dangers and the repercussions of labeling people as opposed to looking at them for who they are as people and for the actions that they carry out. So that's all I have to say about that. Thank you all for a great meeting. And with that, I will entertain a motion for adjournment.
So move.
Second.
All right, all those in favor?
Aye.
Any opposed? All right, we are adjourned.